All right. So, um, you wanted to be able to argue better in English,
Right.
like more confident, more persuasive, more you.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys sent us this awesome YouTube video about tips and expressions for arguing.
Mm-hmm.
It's from Daily Native English.
Mm-hmm.
And we like dove right in. I even learned some new things.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. So,
It starts with a story that I think a lot of people will relate to.
oh yeah, for sure.
The person who is amazing at their job,
Yeah,
but just, could not express themselves in meetings.
totally. Yeah, that story like resonated with me so much because
Especially
I've definitely been in those meetings where I'm like, I know I have something to say here, but I just can't.
when English isn't your first language.
Yeah, and I can't quite get the words out,
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about you feeling confident.
Right.
The video actually cites studies that show that there's a link between debating skills and success in various areas of life.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, like career advancement or negotiating a better deal.
Or even persuading your friends to go to a restaurant that you like.
Oh, gosh. I need to get better at this whole debating thing.
Well, it talks about this method called PRP.
EPRE.
Yeah, point, reason, example, point.
Okay.
And it's supposed to help you structure your arguments clearly, logically, and persuasively.
That's cool. I'm intrigued. How does that work?
Okay, so imagine you have a suggestion for a new project at work.
Okay.
So your point is, I think we should launch a new marketing campaign targeted at Gen Z.
Okay. Makes sense.
Mhm.
What's next?
The reason because our current marketing strategy isn't reaching them effectively, and they represent a significant potential market.
Right. So point and reason. Got it. What about the E?
Yeah, so you need an example to back up your claim.
Okay.
So for instance, recent studies show that Gen Z consumers are more likely to engage with brands on social media platforms like TikTok, which we haven't fully utilized yet.
Okay. Wow. That's so much better than just saying like Gen Z is important.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
adding that example with TikTok or whatever makes it way more convincing.
And then you end by circling back to your initial point.
Cool.
So therefore, I believe launching a Gen Z-focused marketing campaign could significantly expand our reach and increase our revenue.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be super helpful like in a meeting
Mm-hmm.
where you need to get your point across.
Yeah, and it can be helpful in so many situations.
Oh.
Not even just like formal debates,
Oh, okay.
like presentations, emails, or just casual conversations,
Oh, wow.
just to explain your thoughts more effectively.
That's so cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The video also talked about being polite, even when you're disagreeing.
Yes.
Like using phrases like, I see your point, or could we consider another perspective?
Yeah, politeness is crucial.
Okay.
It shows that you respect the other person's viewpoint while still expressing your own.
But
Mhm.
isn't there a risk of sounding too passive, though?
Uh-huh.
Like, especially in like a professional setting
Yeah.
where you have to be assertive.
You're right. It's all about finding that balance. You don't want to be a pushover.
Right.
You want to be respectful
Yeah.
and make sure everyone feels comfortable sharing their ideas.
So how do we deal with like cultural differences in politeness?
Right.
Because,
I think observing and adapting are really important.
oh yeah, for sure.
Like, if you're not sure,
Mm.
you can always start with more polite phrasing and see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great tip. It's about being mindful.
Mhm. Yeah. And, even if you come from a culture that's very direct,
Right.
using these politeness strategies in English
Mm-hmm.
can really help you be more persuasive
Oh,
because it just makes you sound more thoughtful and respectful.
that's awesome. So I like that. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've talked about structure and politeness, but what about the actual content of our arguments?
Yeah. How do we make sure our claims are strong and convincing?
Right.
It's all about the evidence. The video really stresses using phrases like, according to recent studies, or force. For instance, in a similar situation,
Oh, okay.
to back up your points with concrete examples and data.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They had a really good example about hybrid work. Like research shows that hybrid work increases productivity by 20%.
Yeah.
That's way more powerful than just saying hybrid work is good.
Right. Anyone can just make a claim.
Yeah.
But if you support it with evidence, it shows you've done your research and your argument is well-founded.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
But sometimes finding that evidence can be tricky,
That's true.
especially if you don't know where to look.
Yeah, think about industry journals or reputable websites or even data from your own company.
Okay.
Like if you're arguing for a new marketing strategy, you could cite case studies of successful campaigns or market research that supports your approach.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And what about when someone throws a counter-argument your way?
Ooh.
How do we deal with that without getting all flustered?
It's like a dance, you know?
Yeah.
You acknowledge their steps, and then you gracefully lead them in a different direction.
Okay, so like, instead of saying, no, you're wrong, you could say something like, that's a valid perspective, but I think we also need to consider.
Exactly. Or, I understand your concern, however.
Ah.
Or, that's a good point, but have
Yeah.
you considered?
Yeah.
These phrases can really help de-escalate the situation and keep the conversation productive.
But what if you need a minute to like think?
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes I get caught off guard and I'm just like,
I totally get that.
yeah,
It happens to the best of us.
okay.
You know, you can just say something like, oh, let me think about that for a moment.
Oh, that's good.
It gives you a little time to gather your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great tip. Now, what about practicing?
Yeah.
The video had this really cool idea about debating ourselves,
Oh, yeah.
like picking a topic, arguing one side, then switching and arguing the other.
It's a brilliant method.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it forces you to consider both sides of an issue, which strengthens your critical thinking skills.
It's like walking a mile in their shoes.
Exactly. And it helps you practice constructing arguments in a safe, low-pressure environment.
I like that.
Yeah, so you can experiment with different phrases and get comfortable with the flow of a debate without the fear of judgment.
Yeah, that makes sense. They gave that example with school uniforms.
Yeah.
Like, you can argue for them saying they create equality among students,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can argue against them saying they limit self-expression.
Exactly. And they even gave specific examples like the pressure to wear expensive clothes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It makes it more relatable.
Yeah, and it reminds us that strong arguments are built on those specific details and examples, not just vague generalizations.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, but practicing alone can only take us so far.
Right. At some point, we need to, actually talk to people.
Yeah.
The video actually acknowledges that.
Okay.
They emphasize finding opportunities to engage in debates,
Mhm.
even if it's just with friends or colleagues.
Oh, like maybe instead of scrolling through social media at lunch, we could have a little debate about something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture of respectful debate where everyone feels comfortable sharing their opinions.
Awesome. And the more we practice, the better we'll get at expressing ourselves in English.
Exactly. It becomes less scary.
Yeah, less intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
So we've covered a lot here about structuring arguments, using evidence, being polite, handling counter-arguments, and even practicing by debating ourselves.
It's a lot.
It is. But the video also talked about the delivery,
Oh, yeah.
like how we actually present our arguments.
Right, because it's not just about the words we use. It's also about our nonverbal communication.
Well, that's interesting. They talked about like pacing and speaking clearly
Uh-huh.
and using body language.
Yeah, they even suggested practicing with a timer.
Oh, wow.
Like taking 30 seconds to explain your point while really focusing on enunciating each word.
Okay, so it's not just about speaking slowly, but like
It's about being deliberate, making sure every word is understood.
they had that example. I believe technology has improved education by providing access to global resources such as online courses and virtual classrooms.
Yeah.
Like if you say it clearly and confidently,
Mm-hmm.
it just sounds more persuasive.
It shows that you believe in what you're saying.
Yeah, totally. And then there's body language,
Yes.
like eye contact and hand gestures.
Eye contact is so important.
Oh, really?
Especially in person, it makes you look more confident and trustworthy.
Okay.
And hand gestures can help emphasize your points.
Yeah, they even gave examples like holding up a finger when listing an idea or spreading your hands to show balance.
It's like adding punctuation to your words.
Oh, I like that.
It makes your argument more engaging.
I hadn't really thought about it like that.
It's easy to forget about those nonverbal cues.
Yeah, but they're so important.
They can make a big difference in how your message is received.
Okay, so before we move on, the video also defined a few key words,
Oh, yeah.
like mandatory.
Which means something that is required or must be done.
Okay, like wearing a seatbelt in a car.
Exactly.
Then there's perspective.
That's your point of view or the way you see something.
Right. They said, from my perspective, working remotely is more productive.
Mm-hmm. It highlights that different people can have different opinions,
Yeah, okay. And then there's handle.
which means to deal with something, especially a difficult situation.
Like she handled the customer's complaint very professionally.
Yeah, it's about managing a situation effectively.
Okay. And finally, counter-argument.
That's an argument against what you're saying.
Oh, right. Like the counter-argument to this policy is that it's too expensive.
Exactly. It's the opposing viewpoint.
Okay, I think I've got all that. So we've talked about a lot today.
We have.
Structuring arguments, evidence, politeness, counter-arguments, practicing, and even delivery.
It's amazing how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah, it's all about becoming a more confident and persuasive communicator.
And it's not just about winning arguments.
Right.
It's about expressing yourself clearly and connecting with others.
We've been talking about debating like it's this formal thing,
Hmm.
but I think what's really cool about these ideas is you can use them anywhere.
It's true. Like whether you're negotiating a raise or convincing your team to try something new, or even just explaining your opinion to a friend.
Right, like it's not just about winning some big argument.
Right.
It's about expressing yourself clearly,
Exactly.
building credibility,
Mm-hmm.
standing out.
And it can even help your overall confidence in English.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the more comfortable you are sharing your thoughts,
Yeah,
the less scary the language barrier feels.
that makes sense. So how do we actually put this all into practice?
Well, I think you can start small.
Okay.
Like try using these techniques in everyday conversations.
Okay.
Maybe try the PRP method at work or use those polite phrases we talked
Oh,
about.
yeah, just sprinkle them in?
Exactly. Just make a conscious effort.
Yeah.
And remember, it's a process.
Okay.
You're not going to be a master debater overnight.
Right, of course.
Just keep practicing and experimenting.
I like that.
Yeah.
And we can also practice by debating ourselves, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to explore different perspectives.
What if we tried debating the opposite of what we actually believe?
Ooh, that's a good challenge.
Yeah.
It would really push you to think critically and come up with stronger arguments.
It's like iron sharpens iron.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about winning or losing.
Right.
It's about learning and growing.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember?
I hope they'll remember that debating is not about being aggressive.
Okay.
It's about using language to express yourself, connect with others, and make your voice heard.
That's a really beautiful way to put it.
Mm.
And I think it's a great reminder that even when things get heated, we should always aim to communicate respectfully. So to our listeners, keep practicing, keep exploring, and keep those arguments flowing.